They wanted my penthouse. Not an invitation, not a blessing. Just my home, handed over like a favor. For Lily's honeymoon. It's just a week, my mother said, voice dripping with entitlement. It's the least you can do for your sister. I didn't flinch. I said no. The room fell silent. My father looked down. Lily rolled her eyes and sipped her champagne. And then, my mother slapped me. Not in a corner. Not in private. At the center of the rehearsal dinner. Surrounded by cameras, guests, laughter that suddenly froze. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, my cheeks stinging, and stared at the woman who gave me life but never gave me space to exist. My refusal wasn't a betrayal. It was the first act of self-respect I had shown them in years. I walked out before dessert. Left the gift I had brought. Left the congratulations I didn't mean. No one followed me. No one called. Not even Lily, whose wedding I had helped fund in silence. I took a cab home and looked out over the city skyline from my own balcony. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen counter, replaying the slap. Not just the moment, but the years behind it. The ones where I was always the afterthought. The invisible daughter with the visible career. The one who was useful but never loved. I remembered every time they asked for something, not affection, but assets. Money, contacts, a place to stay for the weekend. I always said yes. Because I thought maybe this time they'd see me. They never did. They just took. Lily was always the light of the house. The baby. The darling. When she failed. Her first year in college, they blamed the school. When I graduated top of my class, they said, well, you always were a bit of a robot. I smiled through it. Until I stopped. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be a celebration. But for me, it became a funeral. The burial of every last hope. I had that they might one day choose me. Respect me. Defend me. They didn't. They hit me. And watched. I didn't speak to anyone after that night. I didn't attend the wedding. I didn't send a gift. I didn't answer messages. For the first time in my life, I didn't explain myself. And it terrified them more than any argument ever could. I didn't owe them anything. Not even my silence. But I gave it anyway, because when someone slaps you for saying no, that's not family. That's possession, and I'm not theirs to own. She got the praise, I got the pressure. Always. Growing up, I was the quiet one. The achiever. The low-maintenance daughter who got straight A's and didn't ask for much. Lily was the adored one, always laughing, always surrounded by attention. I thought if I worked hard enough, they'd eventually notice me too. They didn't. When Lily got a B, there were parent-teacher meetings and comforting hugs. When I got an A+, my mother would say, that's what we expect from you. No praise. No warmth. Just obligation wrapped in expectation. I became addicted to achievement because it was the only language they spoke to me. My father once told me, your sister brings us joy, you bring us stability. As if I were a wall, and she was the sunlight. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I smiled. Like always. Because being emotional in that house was Lily's role. Mine was endurance. I started working at 16. Part-time jobs. Internships. Scholarships. My mother never came to a single award ceremony. You're too independent, Olivia, she said once, when I asked why. You don't need us the way Lily does. It sounded like a compliment. It was a punishment. Lily dropped out of college and decided to become an influencer. They didn't even blink. My dad helped her buy a camera. My mom posted her first few photos. I built my career brick by brick, alone. And every time I succeeded, they made sure I didn't get too proud. When I bought my first apartment, my mom said, let's hope you can keep it. When I got promoted to lead architect, my dad said, maybe now you'll finally take a break from being so intense. They hated my ambition, but lived off the image it gave the family. The penthouse wasn't a gift. It was built on years of sacrifice. Missed birthdays. Burned out nights. While Lily posted filtered selfies, I pulled all-nighters and designed buildings from scratch. I never asked them for anything. Not even love. Just space, but space was too much for them. They'd show up unannounced. We were in the neighborhood. Borrow furniture. Host guests in my living room. Just for the weekend. Every time I protested, they'd act wounded. We thought you liked helping. I became the family's backup plan. The fixer. The ATM. The extra room. But never the daughter. Never the one whose name came first in a sentence unless it involved a favor, and through it all, I stayed silent. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, if I was good enough, they'd see me. But at my sister's wedding rehearsal, I learned the truth. They didn't want to see me. They wanted to use me. It was never a request. It was always a demand. Wearing lipstick. The first time my mother asked to use my apartment, it was for a quick photo shoot for Lily's brand. I said yes. I even left for the day so they could have privacy. When I came back, 3 of my vases were gone, and Lily had posted a video from my bedroom, captioned, "Manifesting this lifestyle dizzied it." I texted her to take it down. She laughed. "Relax, Liv. It's just content." My mother chimed in. "Why are you always so uptight? It's not like we trashed the place." That was the beginning of the end, when my personal space stopped being mine. Then came the bridal shower. They used my rooftop. I wasn't asked, I was told. "It'll be a beautiful view for the guests," my mom said. I cleaned, I decorated. I even bought champagne. I wasn't even mentioned in the speeches. Lily called me the silent investor. Everyone laughed. I smiled. But inside, I felt myself harden. They didn't see me. Just the resources I gave them. My time, my money, my effort, always repackaged as Lily's glow. The worst was when my mother referred to my apartment as our backup plan. She said it in passing, like it was obvious. "If the honeymoon falls through, at least we have yours." I blinked. We? She meant Lily. She meant herself. She didn't mean me. Every time I tried to draw a line, they painted me as selfish. "You live alone," my father said. "You have space." As if my solitude was something to be punished for. As if having boundaries meant I owed them more. And Lily, she played innocent. "I'd never take your place without asking," she'd say with a sweet tone. But then she'd wink at my mom and whisper loud enough for me to hear, "Well, she always says yes anyway." I stopped attending family dinners. Stopped responding immediately to messages. That's when the guilt trips started. "You've changed," my mother said. "You're so cold." I hadn't changed. I had just stopped shrinking. Every favor came wrapped in obligation. They never said thank you. Only, "It's what family does." But it never worked both ways. They never showed up for me. Only when it benefited them. The tipping point came a week before the wedding. My mom called and said, "We'll need your penthouse for Lily and James. It's just 1 week. Don't make this about you." I was silent. She continued, "It's the least you can do for your sister's big moment." My chest tightened. I didn't answer right away. That pause was enough for her to say, sharply, "Olivia, don't start." But I had already started, and for once, I wasn't going to stop. She hit me. Not because I was wrong. But because I dared to say no. The rehearsal dinner was held at a luxury venue downtown, marble floors, chandeliers, and an entire room curated to match Lily's Pinterest board. I arrived on time, wearing a dress I chose carefully. Neutral. Polished. Unthreatening. I knew my place. As soon as I walked in, Lily waved me over. She hugged me like she was doing me a favor. "Glad you made it," she whispered. "We weren't sure after the whole penthouse situation." I smiled tightly. She smiled wider. Her lipstick didn't even smudge. Dinner was 5 courses. White wine. Toasts. Then my mother stood up. She tapped her glass and smiled at the crowd. "We're so grateful to everyone who's helped make this wedding special," she said. "Especially Olivia, who's lent us her home for the honeymoon." I froze. My fork slipped. There was silence. Then applause. I looked around the room, people nodding, smiling. Lily beaming. My father sipping his drink like nothing had happened. I stood up. "Actually," I said, voice calm, "I didn't agree to that." My mother's smile faltered. The room shifted. I kept going. "My home is not available. I already made that clear." A beat. Then Lily muttered, "Seriously?" Loud enough for the table to hear. My mother's face turned red. She stepped forward. "Olivia, sit down. We're not doing this." "I'm not being used," I said. Clear. Firm. "Not tonight. Not again." Then she slapped me, open palm. Full sound. Across my cheek. In front of 60 guests, cameras, and a staff of servers who all paused mid-step. My head turned with the impact. But I didn't fall. I just stood there. The silence that followed was louder than the slap. My father muttered, "Helen," but didn't move. Lily gasped dramatically, then looked annoyed, like I had ruined her night. Someone dropped a fork. I reached up, touched my face, and looked at my mother. "You've made your choice," I whispered. "Now I'm making mine." And I walked out, heels clicking against marble. No one followed. No one stopped me. I took the elevator down. Out into the night. Into a cab. The city lights never looked colder. My cheek burned. But not more than the years behind it. That slap wasn't anger. It was control. Her final attempt to remind me of my place, but I had finally left it. I didn't cry. I sat in silence. And for the first time, I felt nothing. When I got home that night, I didn't turn on the lights. I dropped my keys on the counter, slipped off my shoes, and stood barefoot in my own living room. The silence wrapped around me like a blanket, and I let it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there. Not frozen. Just still. I kept hearing the sound of the slap. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I had known deep down: I was never loved. I was only tolerated when I was useful. I touched my cheek. It wasn't even red anymore. But inside, something had been scraped raw. Something old. Something I had hidden under achievement, silence, and obedience. I sat on the floor, legs crossed, and stared at nothing. They had always been this way. I just refused to see it. I kept hoping for a version of them that didn't exist. A mother who defended me. A father who spoke up. A sister who respected me. I was loyal to a fantasy. And that night, it died. The next morning, I called the doorman and revoked all family access to the building. No more unannounced visits. No more, we were just in the area. No more keys that weren't mine. I canceled my RSVP to the wedding. No explanation. Just silence. The same silence they gave me every time I needed them. When I was sick at college. When I lost my first client. When I bought my first home. Silence, dressed as, "We trust you to handle things." They didn't call. Not that day. Not the day after. Maybe they expected me to apologize. Maybe they thought I'd come crawling back like always. But something had shifted. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was empty, and the emptiness felt like freedom. I started writing everything down. Every memory. Every moment. Not for revenge. Not yet. But to remember. Because when you've been gaslit your entire life, you need proof that what you felt was real. I opened old emails. Voicemails. Photos. All the times I was cropped out, left off captions, missed from speeches. It wasn't subtle. It never was. I just got good at excusing it. That weekend, I didn't leave the apartment. I didn't answer texts. I didn't check Instagram. I needed the silence to settle. To become something solid. Then, 3 days after the slap, a message from my mother: "You overreacted. We were just trying to make the day special." That's when I knew. They still didn't get it, they never would, and that's when the idea began to form: not rage, just precision. They didn't just use me. They mocked me for letting them. I started digging. Not out of revenge, but clarity. I needed to see it all. The full picture. No more fragments or maybe I misunderstood. I wanted facts. And what I found was worse than I expected. I went through old group texts. Emails. DMs from family. Screenshots I had saved without realizing why. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed. They didn't just rely on me, they ridiculed me. Repeatedly. Behind my back and to my face, disguised as jokes. One thread between my mother and Lily hit hardest. It was about me hosting Christmas 3 years ago. Lily had written, "She'll do it. She always does. Just remind her she's the organized one." My mother replied, "She lives to feel useful. Let her pretend she matters." Pretend she matters, those words sat like stone in my chest. I checked Lily's Instagram again. Buried in her wedding planning highlights, I found a video I hadn't noticed before. My penthouse, filmed during the bridal shower. She called it "our future nest" in the caption. People commented, "Wow, your place is gorgeous." She replied, manifesting, "Girl ring sparkles." They were never going to ask. They had already decided. They believed I owed it to them. That I was too spineless to say no. There were more posts. TikToks mocking that one uptight sister. Jokes about being emotionally constipated. My laugh. My clothes. My obsession with control. Thousands of views. Dozens of comments. None defending me, even relatives had joined in. I found a comment from my aunt: "Olivia's always been a bit rigid. But she means well." Rigid. Cold. Controlling. That's who I was to them. The reliable machine. Never tired. Never hurt. Never human. I printed everything. Not out of pettiness. But out of preservation. Proof. For me. For the version of myself that still whispered, "Maybe you're just being sensitive." I needed to silence her, too. Then I found the final thread, emails from months earlier. My mother had already been coordinating with Lily and James to use Olivia's place as a wedding gift. I was never asked. The plan had been in motion long before the fake request. They never planned to respect me, they planned to take what they wanted, and paint me as the villain if I resisted. I stared at the printed pages covering my dining table. Years of evidence. Not just of neglect, but strategy. And something in me settled. It was time to stop surviving their narrative. It was time to write my own. They expected me to snap. Instead, I erased them. I didn't confront them. I didn't send a dramatic message or make a scene. That's what they were waiting for, a meltdown they could label as another Olivia episode. I gave them nothing. Just space. Just silence. And then, slowly, I began to take back what was mine. First, I hired a lawyer. Quietly. Not for lawsuits, but for protections. I rewrote my will. Updated my property rights. Added a clause that revoked all access to my home from anyone with my last name. I made my penthouse mine in writing, not just in presence. Then, I declined every wedding-related event. The ceremony. The brunch. The farewell dinner. Each RSVP said, will not attend. No explanations. No apologies. Just the finality they never saw coming, but the real turn came when I forwarded the screenshots. Not to them. To extended family. Cousins. Aunts. People who always saw me as the reserved one. I let them read the texts. The captions. The jokes. No edits. No commentary. The fallout was immediate. I didn't need to say a word. The screenshots spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. My phone buzzed nonstop. Apologies. Shock. Disbelief. Some tried to explain it away. Others just said, I'm so sorry, Olivia. I didn't know. Even my grandmother called. She cried. Said she always felt something was off. You were always so careful around them. I thought it was just your nature. I didn't know it was. Protection. Rachel posted a vague story, some people can't take a joke. Face with rolling eyes, she turned off comments within the hour. My mother sent a voice note. I didn't open it. My father called. I let it ring. They had my silence for years. Now they could live in it.at work. I thrived. I landed 2 new projects. Signed with a design firm in London for a cross-continent collaboration. My name, Olivia Morgan, was on every blueprint. Every contract. Not because I was their daughter. But because I was mine. I deleted every family photo from my apartment. Not out of hate, but hygiene. I needed to detox from the narrative they wrote about me. I wasn't cold. I was frozen, because they never let me be warmed out. A week after the wedding, I received a package. A framed photo of Lily and James, smiling in front of my building, captioned, Our first home together. I dropped it straight into the trash. I didn't flinch. I wasn't their backup plan anymore. I was the chapter they don't get to write. They expected me to disappear. I chose to become undeniable. It's been 3 months since the wedding. I didn't attend. The slap faded. The shame didn't. But it transformed into something stronger than pride. Into clarity. I didn't lose a family. I escaped a performance. My home is still mine. Still quiet. Still clean. But something's shifted. The air feels lighter. I rearranged the furniture. Donated the dining set they once used. I sit by the window now with coffee and peace. No more fake brunches. No more guilt. I legally changed my emergency contacts. Removed my parents. Removed Lily. Replaced them with people who have shown up, not just when it was convenient. My mentor. My closest friend. People who see me as a person, not a resource. I got a letter from Lily last week. Handwritten. Dramatic. Family is complicated, she wrote. But we'll always be sisters. I folded it once. Slid it into the trash. Not out of hate. But self-respect. Being related to someone doesn't mean you owe them your dignity. I've started therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind where you pretend things are fine. The kind where you sit in the truth long enough for it to stop hurting. I've said out loud, my mother hit me because I said no. And I didn't shatter. The woman I am now doesn't beg to be chosen. She chooses. She speaks. She protects. Her name, her space, her peace. My apartment isn't a symbol of status anymore. It's the first place I've ever felt safe. I was never the cold one. I was the controlled one. Molded into silence to make them comfortable. But that mold broke the night my mother raised her hand, and I didn't shrink. I started teaching a design course part-time. One of my students told me, You're the first person who makes me feel like I'm allowed to take up space. I smiled. Because I finally understand what that means. Taking up space isn't about volume. It's about value. It's about saying, I'm here. And I won't be erased. I walk differently now. Slower. Straighter. My name carries weight, not because they gave it to me, but because I rebuilt it after they tried to stain it. They tried to shame me for protecting what's mine. Now I protect myself like a masterpiece. I didn't burn the bridge. I built my own island, and I don't miss the view I left behind.